framed. Oh, this was a while ago, obviously, and it's heavy as hell. I want to get this thing out of my house because he's like proven to be sort of like a douchebag, right? Like with the Pride jersey thing, and now he's on Columbus. He's kind of a douchebag, but like I can't. If I was going to sell this thing, like the shipping alone would cost more than like what I would make selling it. Like I don't know. I want to try and get another jersey framed and signed. I've got like a Solani jersey. I was a huge Timu Solani fan growing up, and but like I don't know what to do with this thing. Like it's like an albatross in my freaking man cave over here.
You got to Gilbert grape it. You got to Gilbert grape it and just take everything out and burn the house down.
But I like that you could find a Columbus fan there.
Well, that might be tough. I like that you brought up Solani, though. I was also a huge fan. That's why when you sent that movie trailer, I was bonkers for that. That was the most amazing.
How crazy does that thing look?
Way too good a quality for them to be in that. I couldn't believe what I was watching.
Yeah, Solani.
I can't wait for it to come out.
When I modeled my game after Solani when I was growing up, I like to the comparison thing. I tried to skate and like make backhand moves on breakaways like Solani. Man, I love that dude.
It's a good one to model your game after.
Yeah.
Okay. So we talked a little Gauthier. We talked a little Lindros. And Dan, it sounds like you've watched Gauthier a good amount here. So here's something that I struggle with. So I've been trying to watch Gauthier. I watched him more in the beginning of the season. And what I saw were things that I'm still seeing now. Whereas he's very sort of nonchalant in the way he plays along the wall, the way he plays defense. Like he'll be in the area, but he's not giving 100% maximum effort type thing, or even sometimes 50% effort. When they have the puck, when BC has the puck, that all changes in a heartbeat. It's like, all right, let's go score a goal. He's getting into position. He knows where to be on the ice. Obviously, he's got that banger of a shot. I saw these things in the beginning of the year. He's making very lackadaisical passes while on the power play, that, pucks leaving the zone type thing. I mean, you could say that I nitpick, but this is a number 5 overall pick that we should have high expectations for. What I'll get is people will go, oh, he's 19 years old. All right, he's 19 years old and he's playing against the same age competition and he's making these mistakes. I know he's got 23 points, 17 games, 13 goals. I think he's top 5 for goals and like top 10 in points, something like that. But I'm watching a prospect and I'm looking to see continuous improvement. And it's hard for me to put, those perceived negative things on Twitter because what'll happen if you do that, right? God forbid you say a negative thing about a kid everyone's excited about. And it's not so much negative. It's just things that I'm kind of noticing where it's like, if he's doing these things when he comes up and plays for Tortorella, Tortorella's going to chew him up and spit him out kind of thing. Like, sure, he's going to love his shot. But are you seeing some of those same things? Because I feel like I come off like I'm bashing the kid sometimes when I bring these up.
The stuff you've brought up on Twitter, I think you have brought a lot of this stuff up. These criticisms are very fair. And there's a lot of uncertainty for me about how Cutter's transition to the professional ranks is going to go. There was a great Spit and Chicklets episode like a month and a half ago where the guys had Logan Cooley on. And Cooley had mentioned that he'd thought when he was drafted that there was a chance that and he was taken like a few picks before the Flyers took Gauthier. There was the same draft. There was a chance that the Flyers are going to like try and trade up to take Cooley. That's what Cooley said. And one of the guys was like, oh my God, like if you'd been drafted by the Flyers, Torts would be walking you around in a dog collar right now. Like it was hilarious. They were all laughing. But when he said that, the immediate thing that popped in my mind was that's going to be Cutter Gauthier next year. Like all of the things that Gauthier needs to improve upon are things that are going to drive Torts crazy. Like what you talked about, like he doesn't really go, into the dirty areas all that often. He doesn't, he doesn't engage in a lot of board battles. The thing that makes it challenging is that his line mates are not exactly world beaters at Boston College. I mean, they're number 1 in the country. They've got the whole line of the kids who were drafted last year, Will Smith, Ryan Leonard, and Gabe Perreault. That line's awesome. And then Cutter is centering two guys who were decent players, but nothing great. So he probably feels like he needs to like drive his line. That's why I'm really interested to see what happens at the World Juniors, because he's playing, between two really good players in Rutger McGroarty, who's on the Jets prospect, and Jimmy Snuggerud, who's a Blues prospect, two of the better wing prospects in the league right now. So it's going to be interesting to see how his game adapts playing between those two guys. But I do think that Cutter, from what I've heard, again, this is just stuff I've heard. I heard he really wanted to turn pro at the end of last season. And the Flyers basically talked him down from it. They were like, look, like, we think you should go back to college, play another year at center. And at the end of the next year, we'll sign your contract. You'll turn pro. I think Cutter thought that he should have been in the NHL this year. He's a very confident kid. And I think he sort of straddles the line between confident and overconfident / arrogant.
Yeah.
And I think that it's going to be, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's going to be sort of a real difficult sort of transition for him. Like, if he comes up and he has these issues and Torts is like, no, you're starting the season like next year in the AHL, like, I think it might cause some friction there. So, and again, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know him personally. This is just based off of things that I've heard and sort of hearing him talk. I think there's going to be some growing pains. All that being said, he's sort of like a freak athlete, and he's such a good skater, and his shot is so good that I think that it's pretty likely that he's going to end up being a very good NHL player. But there is a reasonable chance that it sort of, for whatever reason, doesn't work out. I think Torts is going to be really good for him. So I'm kind of excited, but I think there are going to be some growing pains because of the things that he doesn't really focus on in his game this year.
I would agree. And all I'm trying to do is prepare people for that, right? Because if we're just looking stats, we're seeing 23 points, 17 games, 13 goals. I mean, he's already 3 off of last year's, freshman total, 16 and 32 games. He's having a really solid year. And so I guess when I'm watching him, you could ask Jack, like, I'll bounce things off the guys in our group chat, and what I get is, Jim, why do you hate Cutter Gauthier? And it's not that I hate him. It's just like, am I the only one seeing this, or like, do you guys watch him? And are you guys seeing this stuff too? Because it's not going to fly, right? Like, if there's one thing that's going to piss Tortorella off, it's lack of effort in the tough spots. Morgan Frost is a very talented player, but for whatever reason, Torts has an issue with him playing a certain way in certain areas. Seems like he's figured those things out. He's playing very well of late. That's why I'm like, you know what? Like, I don't know if Gauthier is going to be one of those guys that hits the ground running unless he starts fixing these things now. Like, this is why I don't understand that he's only 19 kind of thing. I get it. Like, yeah, he's young. He has time to work on these things, but now's like, how do you practice effort? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you either do that or you don't do that. There's no excuse not to put 100% effort in every facet. And that's why the Flyers are winning now. Like, they're not the most talented team. Sure, they have talent, don't get me wrong, but they nonstop work. So, with the way the Flyers are playing, and then when I watch Cutter, I'm like, I don't know if it's going to be smooth sailing when he comes up or when that time comes and whatnot. And that's perfectly fine. So I was just trying to prep people, and I guess it looks like I'm coming off negative when I talk about Gauthier is all. Like when you watch Michkov, Torts even said, sorry. So Torts had a quote a couple days ago. If you're going to score goals and score a lot of goals, you can get away with doing some of the stupid stuff. If you're not scoring a lot of goals and you're out there to score goals, you better be playing defense or busting your ass. You know what I mean? So especially after he said that quote, I'm like, ooh, Gauthier's got to figure something out here. So that's all. I don't want to beat a dead horse.
He should really improve the power play. when he's here and he's earned his spot on that power play. But it is interesting. I was just listening to Chris Therien on the Flyers pregame show, and he was talking about how there's a difference in Torts these days because, 5-10 years ago, Torts would not have said something like, I will back off of a guy and in the defensive zone if he's out there scoring goals. Like Torts would not have said that 5-10 years ago. But like you said, he's said that multiple times in the last month. He said it talking about Travis Konechny. He said it multiple times about Konechny. Like Torts has said, like, I look the other way when he does dumb shit on the ice because he scores goals for us. Like, you have to overlook it. And he made the same comment about Bobby Brink it was either yesterday or today. Someone asked him about Bobby Brink, and he was like, he's just around the net. He's got the puck on his stick. Like, he does things offensively where I sort of have to overlook some of the other stuff. And I think that maybe Torts is like, maybe the Jonesy and Briere sort of trying to prep him for when Michkov comes over. And it's like, look, like, this dude's like Nikita Kucherov offensively, but you're going to have to overlook some shit in his own zone. Maybe he's like being prepped for that. I don't know. But Gauthier certainly does not have the level of skill of Michkov. Like, I expect when Michkov comes in the league, he's just going to be like straight fire, right? And Torts is going to have no choice but to, like, play this guy like right away as much as possible. Like you said, and I don't think you're being overly negative, Jim. I think you're just being realistic about like what you see. I don't know if I go so far as to like really question the effort I see from Gauthier. Like, when I watch him play, it looks like he's putting effort out, but the effort is maybe more focused on like getting as many possible shots as he can. And, that sort of thing. It's interesting. I think Torts is sort of preparing himself for Michkov a little bit.
What did he call him again?
The Mad Russian?
Yeah.
Well, that was the best quote of all when Torts was talking about, how he's trying to instill a way for these guys to play. And so that in 2 years, when the Mad Russian comes over and when they sign a few guys, that the foundation is there.
I love it. And if you really listen to Tortorella, the man gets it. He's a great coach, but he's also evolving. He's still evolving as a human and a coach. And I think that's what it's all about, right? He's showing you, hey, I can change. Like, look at the team last year to this year. And I think analytically, they were one of the better teams in the league for most of this season. They completely changed how they were playing, right? He's showing you with his actions and by what the team's doing on the ice, this guy can change. He can adjust. People can say what they want, and I don't want to make this about Torts, but, he recognizes his weaknesses, and it looks like he's, willing to adjust, which should make people happy, because if they were afraid that he was going to be a dinosaur, yada, yada, he's showing you. He can change. So that's good stuff. We have a comment here from Christopher Bogardus. I think that's the first time I've seen you in here, Chris. Thanks for checking in. Live podcast during a game. It's the week before Christmas. Everyone's schedule's a little crazy. We wanted to get Dan on. So, yes, live podcast during a game. Who's got the score, by the way? Anyone got a
0-0. I just figured when you announced we were doing a podcast tonight that the Flyers would like delay the start of the game. But
yeah, right.
Happened before.
Can you believe they didn't? Comment from Eric here, and we were just kind of touching on it. I feel Torts has learned from his past. Yep, he's a smart guy. Yep, for sure. All right, let's we'll keep you around for one or two more topics here, huh? Dan, we know you got a hockey game to get to.
No, actually, I'm not playing tonight, so.
So you can hang out with us for a little bit.
Yeah.
All right.
So I made a comment about this, I think, the day after the 1-0 shutout. So you guys may recall, after the win, management went down into the locker room. Danny Briere, Dan Hilferty. I don't remember if I saw Keith Jones in there. I'm sure if he was, there, he was in the locker room and whatnot. But just seeing that, man, gave me some good vibes. It reminded me of how things were in the past. I think the new I think Dan Hilferty gets it. He and Keith Jones. all summer long at Voorhees. They were down shaking hands with fans. They were, repairing the relationship, if you will. And then seeing Danny Briere in there and every, fan favorite, it seems like he's doing the right things as GM. It really made me feel proud to be a fan of this hockey team in that moment. And I haven't been proud of this team in a long, long time. So I want to ask you guys, and Jack, haven't heard from me in a little bit here. I want to hear from you. Like, how are you feeling? Did those images do anything for you, or how are you feeling? Are you getting there yet, or not? Are you not there yet?
Well,
or did you never stop loving them?
There you go. As you alluded to earlier in the show, it's like a family member. Like, I get really pissed off, but like, they will always be a part of the inner circle. Like, it is what it is. And I put up with a lot more than I'm used to, considering I've been watching teams since like 92, but I tell you all the time, when they're playing, rebuild or not, I cannot help but cheer for this team. Like, even when they're already out of the playoffs, they're going nowhere, they're winning a game, they're in a game, I cannot help but like get emotionally invested into that game. So it'll always be that way. So to see things turn around from a organizational standpoint, because of how down I was on them and everything they had done and said, and even the little things they were screwing up and ruining the future for years to come, to see those things being, it's almost like everything to an extent is being mended in a year or however, whenever the turnover was. I kind of go back to when Briere took over as GM. And it's a really good thing to see, because things had gotten really dark. So it's just like, from not just on ice, but off ice. I love seeing that stuff. I never left, but it's good to be acknowledged, and it's good to get the taste of, this team never used to lose ever. These last 8-10 years been really bad. So yeah, I never left, but I can see why a lot of people may have, and it's good to see that the mending is here.
For sure.
Yeah, it's been a process for me, at least this season, analyzing this season, because I really thought that this team was going to be like bottom 5 in the league this year. It was a bad opinion, clearly. And so I was sort of a little disappointed early on, because I'm like, I was thinking, we maybe get, be in the lottery, have a shot for Celebrini, one of the big defensemen, Lev Shunov or Vasiliev or Dickinson, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen. We had on the O&B podcast, we had Kevin Kurtz on last week from The Athletic, who's, I think, has done a really good job taking over from Charlie O'Connor. Mm-hmm. And he made a point that I thought was really interesting, that I thought sort of put things into perspective. He was talking about, he used to cover the Sharks and the Islanders. And he said that when he was with the Sharks and the Islanders, that it was kind of the same thing with the Flyers, that they always had these prospects that people were always excited about. And he said, he watched a lot of these prospects come up through the system, and by and large, none of them really worked out. He said that he doesn't think that Flyers fans understand how well these young kids are developing and how much they can be part of the future, specifically talking about Tyson Forster, Bobby Brink, Cam York, saying that like we don't realize how lucky we are that these kids who are still really young look like they're going to hit. And it sort of registered with me that, like, yeah, we're fixated on, like, we want to, we have Michkov. He could be a generational talent. Gauthier could be a high-level star. But we want more. We want more, right? And we sort of, a lot of us were disappointed when it looked like we weren't going to get more. But Tyson Forster is really young. He's been really good this season, and I think there's a lot of upside. Mm-hmm. Bobby Brink is the same way. Like, I was not expecting much out of him this year coming off the injury. He looks like he could be like a very high-level third-line winger who I think is going to be a really clutch goal scorer, like in the playoffs and stuff like that. Cam York, to me, looks like he could end up being a top-pair guy and could be a power play quarterback, especially if you've got a Gauthier and a Michkov that he's sort of directing from the point. Mm-hmm. And so I think that a lot of the foundation, even with these young kids, is sort of there. And so I've now sort of turned the corner where I'm thinking about it like, look, like maybe we will make the playoffs this year. I don't know. I still think probably more likely than not we miss it, and we'll end up in that maximum pain spot where we're like just out of the playoffs and end up picking like 12th or 13th in the draft.
Yeah.
But I think because of the foundation that Torts is building and how well some of these young kids look, and the fact that we lucked out and got Michkov at number 7, like I'm feeling pretty positive about the future, despite the fact that it looks like we're not going to get that high pick. And so I've sort of just decided to go along with it, be excited about it. The Flyers sent out an email to season ticket holders. The town hall is like January 19th. I've never gone to it. I've been a season ticket holder for 7 years. I live in DC, so it's difficult. But this year I'm going to take my mom. We're going to go to the town hall. Like I'm buying in. So, I'm excited about it. Kevin kind of changed the way to think about some of these young kids for me, that they really are performing above expectations. And I think that might continue. And we've got a couple really good guys on the way. So I'm excited about it, man. I'm feeling the vibes. I'm rooting for these guys. And I'm pumped. I'm hoping maybe we can get Michkov over here a year sooner than expected or something, but it's exciting for me.
That'd be fantastic.
I love everything you said there, Stan, because I think the beginning of the season with the whole disappointment factor, with the drafting aspect of it, I couldn't agree more. I was all about this team tanking or just losing and being competitive. I told Jim the only teams they're allowed to beat are anybody in their division and the Panthers, because we have their first round pick, and everything else was competitive L's. That's what we were looking at. And the more the season's going on, I did go through a bout of disappointment because of how things are supposed to work out. But like I said, just watching the games, seeing these players develop, and like we don't even talk about Joel Farabee as much anymore. And like he's still very young. He's still like one of the most efficient for time on ice players this season. Like I think he's top 25. I thought I read. Like that's really impressive for him and where he was last year. So I found myself, and this is a big conversation all over Twitter. Dan, I think you got into it with somebody yesterday, the day before. I can't remember. Tanking and playing all the young guys and getting rid of any vet and anybody who could be considered a vet, and ensuring that you develop all your young kids, but also get a low pick so you can get that defensive prospect or whatever. I find myself defending that position, the just winning now and developing what we have now more and more and more, almost like I'm getting over my disappointment factor. And it's basically what you said. And it's just, Jim, it goes with your earlier question, like where was I with this team and whatnot. When you see the effort, when you see them winning, because they've looked good even in losses they've had, and there's very few players on this team that can really be upset with. Like it's not like one guy's carrying us. Like they're all playing well and they're all young. And you just rattled off like all these draft picks from like no later than 2019. And like it's a really good feeling. And I almost would reject my old blind loyalty because they were treating us so badly and doing things so poorly. They've turned the corner and they're making smarter decisions and doing things the right way. And it's showing that I can just say, you know what? They might not get that top pick. They'll figure it out. I have full confidence from what I see and every other aspect of team building and whatnot, that they will find a way and they will figure it out. And yeah, I mean, I can't remember the last time I talked this positively for that long of a run there, Jim, for a while. And that says something.
Well, that's kind of where I was coming from a little bit, where, under the old regime, and they're not here anymore, so I won't name names. Everybody knows who they were. I mean, Jack, for years, there were shows where it was like, they don't want us as fans, is how I feel. Like guys like us who, diehard fans, they wanted new diehard fans. It felt like to me. I felt like I legit felt like, hey, we don't want you as a fan. These are the people that we're targeting. We want these people at games. And it's like, well, you're pushing away hardcore fans. You know what I mean? It's like, and I felt some kind of way for a little bit. I was actually a little bit angry at the Flyers, the organization, the fan in me, because don't get me wrong, they've done a lot of nice things for us as media. We're in the press box. Like that's the Flyers are one of the best organizations in that aspect. Their PR is top notch. As a fan, I was angry at the Flyers because I took it personal. They didn't want somebody like me to go to their games. They didn't care if I went or not. So I felt pushed away. This season, and whether they were winning or not, the way that the organization is doing things, the way that they're kind of tying in, their history and traditions while still moving forward, mixing in new, like today's style, today's things it's making me feel just proud to be part of the whole thing as a fan, as media, whatever. Like it's just giving me, proud feelings again. And I missed those. I missed being proud as a Flyers fan because we used to be, right? We used to look forward to playoff games every year. Don't you remember rushing home from work on a Saturday to watch Flyers Pens at like 1:00 or whatever it was? I miss feeling like that. I miss being excited for a big game. I miss being excited for the playoffs. And I think those days are coming back, So I think that's more where I was coming from, where I'm falling back in love with the team a little bit. You know what I mean? That's all. Do you guys get that sense at all?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So
yeah, no, it's yeah. Well, I mean, look, when I was growing up and it was the Lindros era, and you just knew they were going to make the playoffs every year, right? And it was fun, man. That's why it makes my soul happy to have season tickets. I've lived in New York and DC for the last 10 years, and I've had season tickets. I don't even go to that many games. It just makes my heart feel full. Knowing that I'm like part of it. I'm like, a season ticket holder, and it just I can't wait until the days where they're like when Mishkov comes over, I want to like take a year off from work and just like go and like live in Philly for a year and like go to every game. And like it's wild, man. We're all crazy Flyers fans. Like this is even stupider. Hopefully my wife's not gonna like watch this or whatever. But like my biggest fear in life is that like World War III is gonna break out before Michkov comes over, and like he's never gonna come over. Like that's the crazy shit that I worry about, right? Like because we just want this team to be good. We just want this team to be good so badly, and that's my biggest fear is like
last time Flyers were good, friggin' pandemic cropped up out of nowhere. So
were they really good though? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it were on a roll, but that's about as far as I go with it.
Yeah, I thought they were really good. I think the problem was that Chuck Fletcher also thought they were really good, and it kind of set them back a few years. But
so I didn't like Chuck Fletcher towards the end, but he's come up 2 straight shows, and we have to pencil this down as a topic for an upcoming show, Jack, because somebody, I forget who it was making cases for some of the moves he made. And I think that I would argue he didn't make terrible moves. He just had an extreme stroke of bad luck with some of the ones that he did make. But let's save it. Let's save it.
Hold on. All right, fine.
Let's like think on it a little bit. Come with all the ammunition.
I was ready.
We'll table it for. I know you are.
I was ready.
Yeah. All right. Dan, can we keep you on for a little bit longer? You got to run.
I'm good to go. I got the game on my little TV here in the corner, and
okay. So let's just run through a couple like maintenance topics here. Carter Hart is sick. As I mentioned, Jordan Hall reported the situation is fluid. I'm not sure if fluid was like, a double entendre type thing, but he's been getting sick on and off. And from what it sounds like, he's gone to a doctor. They've narrowed it down. They know what it is, and it sounds like it's going to be a thing. So we'll see, but he's not playing tonight. Sam Ersson is starting. It is 1-0 Devils. Flyers are out shooting them. So, if you guys are watching the game in the comments, let us know how things are going. But yeah, Hart's sick. It's, I don't know. What do you guys want to read into that at all, Dan?
Well, I'll say it was a bad defensive zone shift from Risto and Zamula that led to the Devils' goal.
But I see Nick Delorier puck watching too. Did you see that at all? It's in our comments.
No, I didn't see that, but I saw Risto give it away, and Risto give one away in the corner, and then Zamula sprawled out like Andrew McDonald trying to protect against a pass, and the Devils threaded a feed through to McLeod in front of the net, and he scored. But
that's never good when you get compared to Andrew McDonald.
Yeah, Carter Hart. It's funny. One of the main reasons that I was skeptical about this year was I was convinced that Hart wasn't going to be here for a large portion of the year, having to do with the Hockey Canada thing. And I honestly think that the Flyers front office thought the same thing. I've got some insight into that, and so I think that it's been surprising, sort of, that he's been with the team this season, and I still don't think anyone knows what's going to happen with that situation. I wouldn't even want to speculate with what health issues going on with him. I have no idea. The good news for the Flyers is that Sam Ersson is 7-1-1 in his last 9 games.
Yeah.
And I think there's some people probably within the organization that think that he could be just as good of a starting goalie as Carter Hart. Hart's been great this year. That's going to be one of the big storylines, is what happens with Carter Hart, because his contract is up right at the end of this year. He's a restricted free agent, I believe, and they are not going to want to sign him to a long-term deal unless they can get some clarity about what's going to happen with the Hockey Canada thing. Like, I think that is still kind of a cloud hanging over the situation. The league is handling it really poorly. Like, they either need to come out one way or the other. Like, hey, we're not going to suspend anyone for their parts in this, or they need to come out and suspend them, and then there'll be the appeals and they'll go through the whole process. But like, the Flyers, unfortunately, are in the worst position of any of the teams because they have the most high profile player who's been rumored to have potentially been involved. So it's kind of a rough situation. Hopefully he gets whatever health this situation is cleared up. And he's been really good for the Flyers this year. Hopefully he can get back in the net soon. I just think it's good that we have Ersson here to back up. Alexei Kolosov is probably going to come over from next year from Russia. I'd expect him to play in the AHL. He started off the year really well in the KHL. Kolosov is one of the younger starting goalies in the KHL. And he had been really good to start the year. Then he fell into a little bit of a funk. He had a really good game today. The Flyers already signed him to a contract. So they signed him to a contract and then loaned him out to Dynamo, his team with the KHL. But I think he'll come over next year and play in the AHL. So he could be another really good goalie. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what happens with Hart. Hopefully he gets the health taken care of. But I still don't think they know what they're going to do with him.
And you're on mute again, Jimmy.
You're on mute.
Man, we're on a roll tonight. They definitely have insurance, that's for sure. And in Ersson, who's been playing like a number one, which, we'll see what that does. And then you mentioned Kolosov, he's got a 912 save percentage over in Russia, 2.55. I'm sorry, that's last year. Goddamn hockey DB. So forget about that. You mentioned, and I don't think people are thinking about this enough, that this is Hart's last year of his contract. He said he's going to be an RFA, or need me to double check?
Yeah, he's going to be an RFA. I'm just pulling up my spreadsheet right now. But yeah, he's an RFA at the end of this year. And Charlie O'Connor and Bill Matz kind of talked about this a couple of days ago on their live show, and they looked at some comparables. There's like 3 goalies who make around $10 million a year each. I think Carey Price, Vasilevsky, and Bobrovsky. They can't argue that he's anywhere near as good as those guys. You go down to the next tier, and there's some guys making $7 million a year. And Charlie said he thought that Hart's agent would be pushing for that number. But the best comparable out there for Carter Hart in terms of age and statistics is Tristan Jarry from the Pens. And this past off season, Jarry signed a contract like 3 or 4 years, maybe like $5.5 million or something like that. So Charlie thinks that's the comparable that the Flyers are going to try and make. His agent's going to be pushing for like $7 million, but none of it is going to matter unless they can get some clarity on the Team Canada thing. So I think all of that is going to be very interesting. I do think the Flyers tried to trade him this offseason before the noise about the Team Canada thing picked up. So that's going to be a really interesting storyline. Look, I think my hat's off to Carter Hart, because going through all of this, it's got to be very difficult. And he's continued to play at an extremely high level. He must be dealing with a lot of stress in his life right now, right? And so my hat's off to him for that. We don't know what's going to happen with this, but like, I think he's handled himself very well for the most part. I didn't really like the comment he made the other week about how everyone is rooting against them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be a very interesting storyline.
Maybe that's why he's sick all the time. He's stressed out of his mind.
I mean, I wouldn't want to speculate, but I would have to think that it's been a very stressful past year for him, is my guess.
Yeah, how can it be? I mean, a lot going on. A lot of good goalies behind him, too. First job. Got about to be a free agent. Man, there's a lot going on.
He sure does. Another guy that's had a lot going on of late, not so much recently, is Rasmus Ristolainen. Not injured anymore, getting back into the swing of things. Has been playing well, I think, for the most part this season. I think Torts made comments where he didn't really come back rusty. He kind of came back normal, and his play has been pretty even. He's been consistent. Ristolainen actually gave credit to Tortorella. Said something to the tune of, "I wish I had him as an 18-year-old." And what a compliment that was, I think, right? Because that was a lot of when Chuck Fletcher traded for Ristolainen, I think that was the hope, okay, that maybe Buffalo didn't develop this guy right. We bring him into the Flyers, we tweak a couple things, and he can be sort of a stay-at-home type guy for us. They're not using him right up there. That's what's happened. Now, I think we could credit guys like Tortorella and Brad Shaw with this success of Ristolainen. And Jack, I want to know, I mean, Rasmus Ristolainen so far this year, are you surprised, or are you pleased with the way he's been playing? What do you see?
I mean, it's to the point where I think if other defensive players on this team can't get it together, it's because they're actually not good. Like, I'm really impressed with what he's done with Ristolainen specifically. I mean, look at Sanheim, for God's sakes. Like, I mean, defensively, this team, certain players have really made some strong Walker, you could argue. I mean, I know it's a whole different situation, but like, it's part of the reason that they're playing as well as they are this year. It's not just the forwards. This defense has really held their own and then some. So yeah, I mean, absolutely pleasantly surprised, and I don't even know what else to say. Like, it's
all right.
It's baffling.
You said it all.
I still feel like they're gonna, unless they're like really firmly entrenched in a playoff spot, I still feel like they're going to end up trading like one of Sean Walker or Ristolainen.
I hope so.
I hope it's both. I'm still trade.
I don't. So, and this is, I got into this on the O&B podcast like last week. I think that they still don't have that second tier of defensemen coming up through the ranks that are ready to be second pairing guys. Like, I don't think that I'm not a huge fan of Zamula. Like, maybe he'll prove me wrong. It takes defensemen a long time to develop. Andre, from what I haven't seen him a lot in the AHL, from what I hear, he's very inconsistent. So, like, I don't know if next year Emile Andre is going to be ready to be a second pair guy. If the Flyers think that they can compete next year again, like for a playoff spot, I don't know if you'd want to move like both Walker and Ristolainen, because you still need to have a pretty good second pair next year. And Sealer and Walker have been so good together as the second pair that I don't know if you want to like completely eviscerate your defense core in advance of next season, just because I don't know who's going to backfill there, right? Like, Oliver Bonk will probably be ready 2 to 3 years from now, is my guess. So that's just one of the question marks I would have. But I think that I expect them to move like one of those guys, Risto or Walker. And Risto's been really good. They've transformed him into a very good defensive defenseman, but he's still not a guy that I don't think you want playing on like your top pair. And I sort of like, I don't know if I like him or Walker more on the second pair, but it's interesting because Risto is signed through the 2027 season at $5 million.
Right. A lot of money.
It's bringing him a lot of money. And I don't know, but I think they'll probably move one of those guys. By the way, did you hear Tortorella was asked about that comment that Risto said, where he said he wished that Torts was his coach when he was 18 or 19, and Torts goes, "Oh shit, like be careful what you wish for, Risto." It's kind of funny.
Yeah, see, he's got a little personality to him, Torts. You know what I mean? Like he
Yeah.
can joke around a little bit. Yeah,
I love
it's,
how honest he's
it's
been
good
about
stuff.
everything. It feels like he's saying that most of the same things in these interviews that he does post and pregame and during before practice. It feels like he says the same things to the media that he would say to the players a lot of the time. Obviously, I'm sure it's a little different, but he seems like he's a lot more forthcoming than other NHL coaches when it comes to that stuff. And it's really refreshing to kind of hear him talk about it.
He gets it, man. Like I think he understands the city. I think he appreciates, the type of people that we are, type of fans we are, and whatnot. I just think he gets it. And we were talking about this. I think it was maybe last show or the show before. How the last year or so, it got to the point where just all we wanted was the bare minimum. We just wanted to be told the truth about things. Like we were getting a lot of talking out of the side of their mouth type things where they were giving us lip service and whatnot. And this year, I'm not sure how anybody can be upset with this entire regime because at the very least, we're getting honesty. You know what I mean? Even if you don't like what you're hearing, you're getting the truth. It's not BS. So I think, I'll speak for myself. I appreciate that because they're very transparent. You know what to expect as a fan. You're not being fooled. You're not being lied to. It's genuine. They're authentic. And I appreciate that kind of stuff. I enjoy those kind of people and whatnot. So big stuff there. For Ristolainen as well. I mean, if I don't think they can trade him. I know that, there's random rumors and stuff that keep popping up about Risto, but like, how can you look at Risto's salary and body of work and then see a Sealer and a Walker sitting there for a lot cheaper and go, maybe we don't need to give up a second or whatever it is for Risto. We can go look at Nick Sealer, or we can give up a first for, Walker and sign him to a contract that fits our team or whatever. They have options, which I think are, that's always a good thing if you're a team that's going to be selling. A future topic for a show, Flyers keep winning. Can they even sell anybody off? What's that say to the players? You know what I mean? So we'll save that one. We'll table it because I want to get to this next one here. There's been chatter. I'm not sure where it came from. I just kind of was scrolling the timeline, and I've seen people saying the Flyers should bring Giroux back. I don't know if it was this year or next year, if it was just something that people were saying. My response, well, let me ask you guys. Dan, I'll ask you this first. The Flyers, as they are right now, should they consider bringing Claude Giroux back for any reason?
No.
Okay.
Because they've made a big deal about how the culture is like where they want it to be and the locker room is as tight as ever. Now, do I think that Claude Giroux was like an issue in the locker room? No, not at all. But you have to understand that when you have a guy like that, who's one of the best players in the history of the franchise, he's wearing the C, that when he's in the locker room, it changes how people, interact with other people in the locker room. I think the fact that he's not there, that Voracek's not there, obviously Provorov, I think, might have been sort of an issue in the room. But what they've done now is they've made it so that guys like Joel Farabee and Travis Konechny can take a much bigger part of the leadership core of this franchise. And I think if you bring back a guy like Giroux, he's naturally just going to have a loud voice in that locker room. And I think it would be counter to what they've kind of worked hard to build with the culture. So again, I don't think Giroux's a bad guy at all. I think he was probably a great teammate, one of the best Flyers of all time, but I don't think you want to disrupt the way that locker room is built right now by bringing someone like him back.
You nailed it right there because he's got the skill still. Very good player. No one's saying that. But what you just said, Jack, you remember I caught a lot of shit for this last year. I think I may have said I catch a lot of shit is I think the kind of theme of the show here.
You're kind of a dick.
So I think I said something like the Flyers are going to be better without Claude Giroux. And I had to clarify that a little bit. Players in the locker room will find their voice now that he's not here. Players that maybe couldn't step up, and like Dan, like you just said, players that, had leadership qualities, but felt like they couldn't speak over Claude Giroux, or this is Claude Giroux's room, so this is my place until he's gone, kind of thing. He's gone. Now the leadership opportunities are there to be had, and kind of tie that in with Torts not giving anybody else a letter. I wonder if that's a strategic thing. Like, hey, we don't have a captain. This is not on one, 2 or 3 guys. This is on, let's see who's going to step up, So great point by you, Dan. Jack, I want to ask you the same thing. Claude Giroux, yes or no?
Absolutely not. It's for everything Dan said and more. I mean, the organization made, and the fans too, some begrudgingly, made a decision to move on from this era of hockey. Like, love Giroux. We all do. There's no arguments there. It's one of the worst times you could be a Flyer fan in history, and he was unfortunately the face of it, no matter how good he was. So a lot of what gets lost in translation due to other polarizing points is when we did trade him, it wasn't because we could get a lot and his contract was going to be up and we suck. It was like, we need to move on from this guy, as we've already moved on from Voracek, as we already moved on from Simmons, and Provorov eventually. Like that era, we're moving on. He's the last piece before we can really move on to the next generation of Flyers, like you guys alluded to with their voices in the locker room. But it wasn't just to get assets. It was very much so a sign that we are moving to the next phase of our team. Bringing him back this early would just, it'd be so silly. It would be stupid for everything you were saying. And why are we giving up assets in a season we're supposed to be rebuilding? We're really going to give this team a chance just from that aspect of it. We're really going to, I get what you're saying about the locker room, and I'm sure we'll get into that more on a future show. But Briere's been pretty clear here, like what we're gonna do. Our plans have not changed. So I expect them to, one, for everything we just said, not bring it back, but also the way they've structured their organizational rebuilding of this team, also another reason not to bring him back.
I'd also wonder why the hell he would want to come back. Like, he's got it pretty good right now. He's playing in his home city up there, Ottawa, or just near his hometown. He's got a beautiful family. Why would he want to leave that? Why would he want to come back? Why would he want to play for Torts? And it's not like the Flyers are contending for a cup this year and next year. I think what it is, it's nostalgia. Like, Giroux's a lot of people's favorite player. It'd be like the fairy tale thing. Oh, the Flyers are good again. Let's go get G a cup. Yada, yada. I get all that. But he had how many years here to do that? Give these kids a chance. Whose spot's he going to take?
It's happening in NHL, people's NHLs right now during their season.
That's what it is.
And let's be real. I'd probably do it in NHL, sure. Real life, come on.
Get him that cup, Jack.
Come on.
So I'm just looking at so theoretically, if Michkov plays out his KHL contract, he'll be ready to come over here in the summer of 2026, I believe. So I just pulled up NHL UFAs the summer of 2026, because really that's when you're going to want to be adding, right?
Yeah.
So listen to some of the guys who are going to be UFAs that summer. Connor McDavid, Artemi Panarin, Jack Eichel, Alex Ovechkin, Kirill Kaprizov, Patrick Laine, Kyle Connor, Anze Kopitar, Evgeny Malkin. Like, there's a really good group of UFAs this summer that Michkov might be joining this franchise. That's when you're going to want to add someone, right? Like, not now. God. When you're really ready and this kid's coming over, like, hey, Kirill, you want to come play with the next young Russian superstar?
I was going to say a lot of Russians in that list. That's interesting.
Right? Oh my God. It's right off the bat. Connor McDavid. I'm like, oh my God, this list is going to be insane. That's crazy. I hope half of them get there. That would be something. So interesting. Good mix of franchise changing and also old stars who were amazing in their day. Ovechkin, you mentioned. My God.
Yeah, McDavid, Eichel, Kaprizov, Laine, Kyle Connor, all under the age of 30. when they're going to be UFAs. So I'm just looking at this list.
And then Malkin and Ovechkin, like for the older, like
yeah, they're going to be like 40.
Kopitar. It's just weird. What a weird mix. Yeah, that would be amazing to structure your team. Oh man, any defenseman on that list that I missed one?
Oh, is this just forwards? Hold on. Okay, let me pull up the defenseman.
Whoa,
good point.
Wait a minute.
Okay, so defensemen who are going to be UFAs. It's not. Oh my God, Cale Makar is going to be a UFA.
There's no way.
Oh,
Cale Makar, UFA at the age of 27. Wow.
Oh my God.
Can you? John, I'm going to post this. I'm going to post this list on Twitter. John Carlson, Jacob Trouba, Shea Weber. We can bring. I mean,
finally,
you can retire a Flyer.
Ryan McDonough, Matthias Ekholm. Yeah, that's interesting.
Huh.
Damn.
That's when the cap's going to supposedly skyrocket, isn't it? 2026.
Enough for us to sign McDavid. Could you imagine McDavid and Michkov?
No, I couldn't.
Oh my God. Imagine.
We wouldn't even need defense. No.
Oh man. See, that's what we need to be saving our money for, boys. We should start a GoFundMe for the Flyers to sign McDavid like 3 years from now. Let's start it up. Let's start it right here. We'll sell T-shirts or something. McDavid charity fund, whatever. We do have one more topic before we wrap up. So we were just kind of talking Risto, Walker, Sealer. If there's forwards that I'm missing, I can't recall any. Oh, Ryan Poehling, 1-year deal. Should the Flyers be sellers now, or should they wait to the trade deadline, Jack?
It's interesting with the whole trade freeze. You look at last year, and for sure they could have traded JVR earlier. I know they had offers. Instead, they played it out, which most GMs do. Trade deadline, and they wound up with nothing. I don't think that'll happen this year, but if they honestly get an offer that they want, like Walker officially gets like a pretty good first, 1-for-1 deal, that's pretty tough for me to. Why wait? Like, what is it? Are you going to get more than that? Really? I really don't think so. And it also would, it's going to sound messed up as how much love we just talked about the team. But like, if they did not finish at the end of the first round, that wouldn't be the worst thing either too, depending on how their play keeps up. I can't really make an argument for it when they're on an 8-game heater, with point wise, but ideally I would strike while the iron is hot as well. Like, I can't go against that in a rebuilding year. Like, why would you not get as much as you can? So I'm not saying you have to. I don't know why you don't either. So I've seen players lose value. You think you're getting a first-round pick for Lawton anytime soon? I mean, he's pretty rough so far this year. So, I mean, if you got what you want, take it. But don't obviously, you only get a second for Walker. I'd be a little disappointed. I'd be you should have waited to the deadline. So I'm not saying just trade for the sake of trading, but if the value's where you want it, why not? Speaking of Ryan Poehling, he just scored. It's 1-1.
Great pass from Farabee.
Oh, it was even strength. Dan, you want to chime in on some of Jack's comments there? You think they should go now?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we get blown away with an offer for Walker or Ristolainen or Sealer or Lawton, I think you got to think long and hard about taking it. I do, as I was just sort of saying with the last question, like, I want this team to compete this year, next year, and I do worry about that second tier of defensemen, like who's going to fill that role next year. And so that would be my only hesitation. Like, if Sean Walker was like, I want to sign here and I will sign a 3-year deal for, $3.5 million per year, like, I would think long and hard about re-signing that guy. But I would also then look at maybe trading Ristolainen. I would think I would look at trading one of those two guys, Walker or Ristolainen, and maybe Sealer, because that would open up a spot for Emile Andre next year. But I'm definitely not as much of a sell advocate as I would have been a month ago. Like, I kind of interested to see how far this team can push it this year and just let people blow you away for an offer. Lawton's obviously, I think, an important part of this, the leadership core of this team, but I think I would trade him well before any of those three defensemen, I think, just because he's going to be the guy that's more immediately replaceable from a talent and roster construction standpoint. I really have been impressed with Ryan Poehling. Like, he was a former first-round pick. Like, I wouldn't be opposed to trading away Lawton, even though Lawton hasn't been great this year. I don't know how much that matters. Like, he has a reputation around the league. I'm guessing you could still get maybe a first-round pick for Lawton at the deadline from a team that really wants to, improve their grit and leadership core at the deadline for the playoffs. So I'd be looking to trade a guy like him probably before I'd look at the defenseman.
I guess that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why they signed him to a year. It's kind of like Torch said he's kind of betting on himself, so he appreciates that. But can he play his way into a larger contract with, potential playoff team? Can the Flyers get something meaningful for a Poehling? So interestingly enough, like, for me, the Flyers lack center depth. I really like the way Poehling's been playing. He's, a guy you ideally want on your fourth line that can potentially bump up to the third. I think I would rather keep him over, if you could sign him for, I don't know what the going rate is for a fourth line center. If you can keep him around that number, and I would rather trade, at least 2 out of the 3 of these defensemen. I want to ask you guys this real quick. If you were offered a first-round pick, and I don't know, maybe they throw in like a 4th or a 3rd or something. If you're offered a first, let's go on the low side, a 1st and a 4th for Sealer and Walker, do you do it?
I would do it.
Like today?
I feel like I need more information for that. I probably still would do it, but I really would want to hold out to the deadline. I feel like if you're already being offered that in December, come deadline.
Great point.
A 1st and a 4th for Sealer and Walker?
Yeah.
From like the Leafs or something like that?
Yeah.
It's a very difficult question, right? Like, yeah.
You're never going to get his first for Sealer again.
I don't think I would make that move right now. It sounds crazy, but it's going to be very likely going to be an extremely late first-round pick. The thing that's appealing would be trying to package. We already have 2 first-round picks, right? It'd be appealing trying to package some of those picks to kind of move up to get into the top 10. But the reality is that doesn't really happen. Like, the value of a top 10 pick is so high that, like, you probably couldn't even trade, like, 3 picks in the late 20s for that.
Well, look at Boston in 2015, 3 first-round picks. They were unable to trade into the top 10 for a defenseman.
Yeah, I know.
I think that's why they got caught with their pants down and made the picks they did.
Right.
But there you go. And that wasn't, none of those picks were in the 20s. They were teens. It was like 14, 15, and 16 or something like that. And they still could not get into, I think they were looking at 6, but still could not get into the top 10. Like, it's true. It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
One guy that we didn't mention through all of this defensive talk is Ronnie Attard, which, I'm not saying that's good or bad. I just find it interesting how we kind of forgot about him a little bit. I haven't watched a whole lot of the Phantoms, so can't really touch on, how he's played, but 14 points, 23 games, 5 goals, 9 assists. Maybe the forgotten guy. He's 24 years old. He'll be 25 in March. So not exactly a young kid anymore. He's right shot D, obviously. Does he have a spot? Is he going to be blocked, if you will, if they keep around Matt Walker? And I think I don't think Risto's going anywhere. So, but just, something to think about. If they do end up keeping some of these guys around, where's Ronnie Attard go? Does he have a future with the Flyers? That kind of thing. Boys, anything that you wanted to talk about that we missed tonight before we wrap up?
I'm very excited as always for the World Juniors. I think that it's especially this year, I'm going to be really intrigued to see what happens with Gauthier, because he's playing between two very good players, it looks like, in McGroarty and Jimmy Snuggerud. So there's going to be no excuses of any sort for Gauthier. I think there's a very reasonable chance he ends up being MVP of the World Juniors. I think he's going to answer some questions in a positive way. So I'm sort of excited for it. I think he's maybe been on cruise control a little bit at Boston College.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for the World Juniors. I'm excited to see him play. I hope that Oliver Bonk gets some time. Oliver Bonk made Team Canada as a 18-year-old defenseman. He's the youngest defenseman on the roster. He's the only 18-year-old defenseman on the team. I don't know if he's going to be the seventh guy. He played in their top six today, but it's because one of the guys was injured, who is projected to be, who was projected to be in the top six. So I don't know if he'll be, but he had 2 assists today in one of the pre-tournament games. So I'm excited. Hopefully he'll get some minutes. It's just always a fun thing to watch. So I'm excited to see that.
For sure. And I believe I have to double check. Alex Ciernik also made Team Slovakia. So he's another guy to watch out
Correct.
for. The Flyers have 3 prospects. He was their 4th round pick from this past draft in the summer. So Bonk, Ciernik, and obviously Gauthier, 3 players to look out for in the upcoming World Junior Classic. I believe it's in Gothenburg, Sweden. So, yeah, obviously World Junior Classic's always fun. Before we wrap up, I want to thank everybody in the comments. Eric, Christopher, Dave, Darian, and Ron Rawa. To all the noobs that showed up, guys, thanks for hanging out. Ooh, Eric wants to know how Knuebel's doing. The last time I checked, numbers were not great. Haven't watched them, so I haven't been able to watch Knuebel on the site that I use, but we can just tell you real quick here, and then I'll try to find a way to watch him, because I think that question's been asked before. So Knuebel's got a goal in 18 games at Notre Dame, and he's got 4 points. So he's adjusting still, I think, as a 19-year-old freshman in college. So I hope that's good enough to answer your question for now, Eric. But for Dan, I want to thank you for coming on. Thank you for not ripping me a new one to start the show and clarifying.
Never, man. It's all good.
Okay.
It's always a pleasure coming on with you guys, man. You guys do a great job.
It is always a good time. Yeah.
It was a good time, Dan.
Yeah, we got the holidays coming up, so happy holidays to you and yours, Dan.
Thanks. Yeah, same to you and all the listeners. Happy holidays.
Yeah. So we're going to wrap this one up. I guess next time you hear us, guys, will be after Christmas. Let's go watch the Flyers win, and we'll talk to everybody soon. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and we'll talk to you before the new year. Take care, guys.
Merry Christmas. Bob Froze.
Hey, Ron Raw.